Welcome to the Practical Parenting Series. My name is Pamela Belisle. I'm the Executive Director of the Parent Resource Center. We hope that you enjoy taking part in the parenting journey with us. In the next few sessions, you'll learn more about parenting styles, how our parenting style was developed. Are we the parent that we want to be, or are we still working on becoming the parent that we choose to be for our children? We'll talk about self-esteem, communication, stress management, discipline, and safety. I hope that you enjoy watching the video and putting new tools in your parenting toolbox. Things that we want to look at, is this a growth or developmental stage? When a child grows, each new phase of growth or development brings with it new challenges for the child and new challenges for us because we love them so much, but we're like, for instance, sometimes when children are growing, specifically boys, and I do not know a clinical reason as to why this happens, sometimes boys will get growing pains. Oftentimes girls don't, but little boys do. And what will happen is all of a sudden they're just really whiny. They may not be a whiny kid, but all of a sudden they're extremely whiny. And especially until they're able to tell us what's going on, sometimes their little bodies hurt. Is this an individual or temperament difference? All children are different, and being aware of a child's personality is absolutely critical to our parenting journey. If you have more than one child, you can share that each of them have a different personality. If you have 10 kids, they're still going to have different levels of personality, and each of them are individual. So we want to recognize that. How we parent one may not be the same tools as we need to modify our tools for another child. Is the environment causing the behavior? An overcrowded room, for instance, or a lack of toys, or too many toys. These are all things that can increase aggression in a child. Sometimes they can spark jealousy too. If there's more than one child and you don't have enough toys to go around, sometimes they'll start to battle because they want that other toy that child has. Does the child know what's expected of them? Do you have family rules? Are they posted, and are you using them consistently? And I will let you know, my opinion is if you have a child over the age of 3, you should have rules in your home and they should be posted. And we're going to talk more about family rules as we move forward in tonight's class. Is the child expressing an unmet emotional need? Some kiddos require more attention than others. Some children want to be held, some children don't. Again, it's all about who is this person that we love so much? What is their personality? Sometimes does it match our own? That's when it's also tough. So you want to be able to recognize that we want to parent our child based on their developmental stages, their personality, but don't forget we need to parent based on our own personality as well. And Dr. Phil did an article, How to Parent Based on Your Child's Personality. I'm going to read some of the excerpts from this article because it's really well done. What is your definition of success as a parent? Most parents have career goals or relationship goals, but fail to set goals of parenting. You need to have a clear definition of success as a parent and the steps you'll take to get there. One guest definition is seeing our children growing up happy and secure and feeling good about themselves. Dr. Phil says this is a great goal, but adds that all parents should help their children discover their authentic self, discovering that which is truly uniquely theirs. Find your child's strengths and go along with them. We want to make sure that we're doing what works. If something is working, we won't have to repeat it. For instance, some parents yell at their children or spank them repeatedly, only to have them disobey. Dr. Phil advises against this type of parenting because if you're doing something that works, then you shouldn't have to do it over and over and over again. It should change the honor, respect, and obedience in your children. If it doesn't, you may need to change your style to meet the needs of your kids. We do not recommend using our hands or loud voices with our children. What we have learned through years of parent education with the Parent Resource Center is that those two tools do not work typically. They do not work long term because once that shock value is over, whether that be the yelling or using our hands in physical punishment, once that is used a few times, the child either gets used to it or avoids that behavior that gets that response. But it does not work consistently. What it does do is makes you feel guilty and makes the child either feel hurt emotionally or physically. Different children need to be parented differently. You've got to be a chameleon, Dr. Phil says. You've got to change styles with different children. For example, if you're an authoritarian parent, you may want to take a less direct approach with a rebellious child. Allow them to decide some things and come up with some ideas and solutions to assist you in that parenting journey. Spend time with your children individually. It's very important. And if you have multiple children, I know it's tough. It is absolutely tough. Make a date night. Stagger their bedtimes. Even if you can only get a little bit of one-on-one time, even if it's a half an hour, try to stagger out their bedtime so you have some quality time at least once a week, individual quality time with each child. Modeling for them. We're their first teachers. And we need to model the behaviors that we want to say. If you are walking around yelling, swearing, or if you choose to use your hands in anger or frustration, don't be surprised when your kids do the same thing. Remember, we're their model. If we don't want to see the behavior, then we can't be exhibiting that behavior ourselves. Children should be able to predict consequences of actions. It is so important that you're consistent. If it's not okay to write on the wall on Tuesday, you need to be clear that it's not okay to write on the wall on Wednesday. I mean, I know that's kind of a silly kind of explanation, but it's very true. We need to be consistent in the behavior that we are showing and what our rules are. We're going to talk about communication. Communication is as important as that parenting by the style of personality, yours and your child's. We need to be able to communicate with our children openly and honestly. There were different types of communication, and I want to be able to share what those look like. And we'll talk more about the importance of communicating and how to do some role playing around communicating, whether that be with our child, our partner, our boss, somebody in the general community. It's important that we have some different styles of communication available to us in order to be successful. Clear and direct communication is one style of communication. It's the most healthy form of communication. This is when we say clearly and directly what it is that we need, we want, or how we're feeling. There's clear and indirect. This is another style of communication. In this one, the message is clear, but not directed to the exact person to whom it's intended. It's disappointing when people forget to complete their chores. This is a message that a parent may be saying to their child, but unless we use their name directly and say, son, I'm really disappointed that you didn't do your chores, we can't assume that the child's going to get the message, nor can we assume he's really going to care what that message is. If we use his name, if we say, Joey, I'm really disappointed you didn't clean your room or that you didn't complete your chores, there's no way of getting around that one. That is ownership. He's going to own what he did or didn't do. Masten Direct is another style. This occurs when the content of the message is unclear, but directed to the appropriate person. So for example, son, people just don't work as hard as they used to. I call that so what kind of communication. Depending on how old the child is, it's so what. If somebody was to say that to me, PM, people just don't work as hard as they used to. That's a so what statement. That's an opinion. And you know, how I feel about it, it's a so what answer. Then there's Masten Indirect. Masten Indirect occurs when both the message and the intended recipient are unclear. This is not a healthy way of communicating. For the example, the youth of today are very lazy. Again, we go back to that so what statement. Whereas if we're clear and direct with the message, our children are most likely to hear us and take part in what needs to happen next to fulfill our request or the reason for our communication. There are 4 W's in communication: what, where, when, and why. Those are important. What we're saying to our child or to whomever we're communicating, when we say it, why we're saying it, and where we're saying it. So let's give a scenario. We want to plan a birthday party for a child. So we're talking to our partner about an upcoming birthday. When we talk about that's going to be important. Why?
When, like, maybe like the time before the birthday party?
When we have that conversation, meaning, are the kids around? You know what I mean? So if it's something that you want to, you know, we don't do surprises and we don't do secrets, but if we don't want them to have all the information about it, when we have the conversation, maybe after the child's in bed, it's going to be important. Why are we having the conversation? That's an important one. Why would we want to have a conversation with our partner about a birthday party? To plan it.
You're on the same page.
You're on the same page. What else? Financially, you know, do each of us know how much money we have to be able to spend on that? We all live in real households. Money is tight. In some houses it's tighter. What we're talking about is the birthday party. When we talk about it is going to be important. Why we're talking about it. Where we have the conversation is important. What do you think about that? Where we have a conversation, why is that important?
I want to have it in the middle of the supermarket.
Right? Right?
Depending on the conversation, it could be somewhere that's neutral to both.
Absolutely. Yeah. What else? Where is one of the big ones for me? Where we try to communicate with our family members or people in our lives, where we have the conversation could also be due to distractions.
Where they have the undivided attention.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if your house is anything like mine, if the TV's on, I'm not getting complete attention, and I know that.
Yeah.
Because it's distracting, you know? Or if my husband is working on a car or working on wiring or working on something that he's working on with his hands, he's going to be distracted by that. So I need to choose when I have the conversation to be less distraction. And that's whether they're big or little. Anybody in our lives, we need to make sure that they're giving us their full attention, and we need to reciprocate that as well. So positive communication skills are very important for our child's development, for our relationship as a family. We need to be honest but not accusatory. So, you know, using, you know, you're a loser or you're bad, you're whatever in a negative tone, you're going to lose that person's attention most often. They're going to start to shut down because if you start out with you and using a negative name. So we want to be really careful of that. Even if we're angry or we're frustrated or we're disappointed, just be really mindful of using their proper name. Or, you know, even if it's a loving pet name, that's fine. But using their name when you're talking to somebody, it really can make a difference, and it catches their attention. If you need to argue, if you feel the need to argue, do it constructively. Meaning, if you're going to argue about something, then it best be something that's important. Not something that happened 2 weeks ago that you're dredging up now because you're in the mood to just be in a poor mood and feel like arguing with somebody. Make sure to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. If we can stop and reflect, what would it feel like if we had a conversation directed at us in the same tone that we're directing to our child or to our partner or to whomever it is we're communicating? Accept feelings. Feelings are ours. We have to own them. When we talk about communication, we want to talk about active communication. Instead of blocking communication, which means that we're not listening with full attention or that we're talking too much, because if we're talking, guess what? We're not really hearing what it is that somebody else is saying to us. We want to listen for feelings. We want to connect feelings to the content of the conversation and look for ways to evaluate what it is that's going on. If we have a conversation, it needs to be listening and speaking. Oftentimes, too often, we'll find ourselves talking and not listening or waiting for the response from somebody else. That makes us human. That's something that's practiced. And it's something that's learned. It's not something that we can actively decide to do. I'm going to tell you how I feel and not listen to you and not wait for your response or let you have any feedback. No, of course we're not going to intend to do that, but it's something that we learn through the years, and especially from our childhood growing up, we may have learned those skills. That children were to be seen and not heard was unfortunately something that was taught to generations before us. So we want to make sure that we are listening. We are receiving a message is how we define listening. With that, we want to listen without distraction, without interruption, without judging, and without arguing. This is tough stuff. This is not something that is going to be simple to implement. It's going to take practice, and for many of us, communication skills is a lifelong process. Positive communication takes time, it takes patience, and that patience isn't with your family members, with your boss, with your partner, with your children, it's with yourself. If you mess up, say sorry. If we are actively listening, we are watching for the other person's body language. We are putting ourselves in somebody else's shoes. And we're able to reflect back what someone has said to us and state those facts back to them. A great tool that can be used in communication are called iMessages. I'm going to share some examples of those and how to use iMessages, and then I'm going to want your feedback to be able to practice some of them back with me. We can make them silly. This is our time to learn. Doesn't have to be stiff. It doesn't, we can have fun with it. So I'm going to give a few examples, and I'm going to ask you guys to give me a few more. iMessages allow people to tell what they want without blaming or putting somebody else down. I feel happy when you clean your room. I feel angry when I step on Legos. I feel disappointed when you get a bad grade on your test. So these are all examples of I statements. What the key here is, I'm sharing my feelings. I'm not saying you are a rotten little loser. How dare you get an F on that test? I've taught you better. I've raised you better than that. And you're just going on and on and on
Would
and on and on.
somebody really say that?
I think that one's pretty extreme. But depending on the circumstance, it could come close. In any level of negative conversation is what we're trying to avoid. We want to keep everything positive and not get that finger pointing. And because oftentimes when we start with a negative communication, what will happen is, well, is your finger will start to go. Okay? Then your voice starts to raise. And then the child is like, oh, here we go. And depending on how old they are, they've seen this pattern before. So in turn, they're like, zone you right out. Oh, mom's on a rampage. Dad's losing his cool. And they're going to zone you out. So what we try to do is let's take all that junk out and just say, I feel whatever I feel when. We're going to own it. Let's own our own junk. So let's see if you can give me some examples or maybe practice some of your I feels based on things that you are accustomed to. Maybe it's toys on the floor. Maybe it is a child who's not using their manners. Maybe it's a child who's not listening or following the family rules. So let's have some examples. What are some other I messages that we may experience in a family or in a home?
I feel disappointed when you're disrespectful.
Awesome. Yep, absolutely. Because it's true. When we feel disrespected or feel like we're being treated disrespectfully, we are going to feel disappointed. Some of us may feel angry. And that's good to be able to share how it is that we feel. And iMessages can be used for happy stuff too. And those are the ways that we practice them and get more used to them as we practice them with happy stuff. Yes?
I had one that I need to practice because she says this a lot, and I always react badly, is I feel hurt when you say you want to be adopted or you have a different mother.
Okay.
I don't hit, I'm not a hitter, but I react badly. Yes.
How do you feel about that though? When you
It hurts. Makes me almost want to cry. Yeah.
I bet it does.
Hurts me.
If
I tell her that.
And
it
it
hurts
gives
me.
a reaction. And that is what, when we own our own feelings, that's what sometimes kiddos are looking for, is a reaction. And the more reaction we give, if it's negative or positive, the more we give, the more we get. So we want to exactly practice that one. Yes.
Yeah, I feel happy and loved when you help me out and do your dishes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I feel happy when we're all doing our family chores, when we're all is a great word.
Yeah,
When we're all following the rules.
Especially
Because you feel connected. You feel that interconnection when you're not saying, because what happens is if we're saying, you did, we're not owning it. I call it my mama finger. My mama was a pointer, my mama was a yeller.
I tend to do that.
So I'll sit on my hands. And I do have a friend here that can tell you, I will sit on my hands and I practice sitting on my hands because I don't want to point. I don't want to raise my voice. I don't want to repeat the things. But our parents only knew what they were taught. I know differently. And I'm very lucky. One of the luckiest parents in the world. I have more tools in my toolbox, but I still have a choice to use them. The work that I do, I'm able to have more opportunities for learning. But as a human being, I make a conscious choice whether or not I use the tools that are in my toolbox. Let's talk a little bit about yelling. Do you think that anybody ever wants to get up in the morning and say, I'm a yeller, I'm going to yell at my children all day, I'm going to yell, I think this will make me happy, I feel happy when I am yelling? No, of course they don't. Nobody wants to yell. For most people, yelling is inherited. It's a learned behavior that you learned. Nanny was a yeller, Grimpy was a yeller, Mama was a yeller, Daddy was a yeller, your aunt, Uncle, Susie, whoever in your life was a yeller. So we let those old messages creep up when we start to feel upset or feel off in our own emotions. That voice starts to creep up and get louder. And all of a sudden we end up in the middle of yelling and oftentimes in an argument, because when we yell, the person we're trying to communicate with is being defensive and they are also yelling. So you have two people who have just risen their voices too loud And then at some point, somebody's going to end up upset. Either they're going to have some level of emotion. They're either going to be angry, they're going to become more angry, frustrated, sad. But when we yell, I've not found a place where happiness comes surrounding loud or yelling voices. The only difference in that is kind of in sports. Sometimes in sports, a loud voice is not a bad thing because you're, expressing yourself, but it's not a negative. So when we yell, when we bring ourselves to that voice up to a next level, a louder level, oftentimes old stuff, old tapes are rewinding in our heads. And that's when we start to get in arguments about junk that happened yesterday, 2 weeks ago, 4 days ago. And we bring all of that, repeat all that junk up. So the argument continues to go longer. Is everybody feeling where I'm going with this? If we use iMessages and state clearly how we feel, we can. And I have had people who were yellers. I've had many parents I've worked with that have been self-proclaimed yellers that have made a choice to no longer yell as much. And some of them have done away with yelling completely. We are human beings. So we're going to have times that we're going to lose our cool. We're going to say something that we regret. My grandpa said he was a man of many words of wisdom. Some old school stuff. One of the things that I'll never forget is he taught me that if you speak in anger, you make the best speech you'll ever live to regret. And it's really important that we recognize that because we are human beings. More than any other thing that I'm going to teach you is these two things. There's no such thing as a perfect parent. And we are human. We're gonna make mistakes. We, though, need to remember, we can say we're sorry. But if you're going to say I'm sorry or I love you, mean it. Don't give lip service. Don't say it because it's the right time or because you have been taught this is when you're supposed to say I love you or you're supposed to say I'm sorry. Mean it. Look this person that you care about in the eye and mean it. Some different ways to say I'm sorry to somebody that you love include, I'm feeling defensive. When I feel defensive, sometimes I say things I don't mean. You think that's true? If we're off emotionally, we may say stuff that we really didn't mean. How about I'm not talking to you like you were someone I love? Let me start over because I do love you. I know I'm sounding angry, but I'm feeling extremely threatened. Let me take a deep breath and try again. Not only can we say those with our words, but we can do that. Honestly, we can do that. Take a breath. Stop and think before you start to sputter something that you shouldn't.
So if you're like in the middle of it, like you can just stop and say, I need to start this all over.
Yep, absolutely. And especially if you're talking to a child.
If it's really heated, you know what, mommy, or if you're it's a spout, I need a timeout for a minute.
Yep.
Can you do that? Really?
Absolutely.
It doesn't undermine what you're doing.
It de-escalates anything that's going to escalate into something bigger.
Oh, that's so good to know.
And it may.
And instead of sending your child to timeout,
you take the timeout.
You take the timeout, and they're going to be like, oh, wait a minute, mommy was just yelling 2 minutes ago, and now she's taking a timeout.
That's funny.
She knows that what she was doing wasn't right, and they're going to reflect the same thing.
That's cool.
We had code words. That if we started getting frustrated, my teenage daughter would look at us and say, clouds. That meant I need to step back, I need to take a break. And she would come back after she calmed down and say, the winds. And everything was fine, we could talk. She's almost 16 now.
Excellent. So these are tools that, some of these tools that you learn in this series may work for your house, other ones may not. And it's gonna be, there's a lot of information available to us as parents, and we need to tweak what works for us. I know you're feeling harassed. Please bear with me. I'll do better for you. I'm afraid if I say I'm sorry, you'll make everything my fault. I'm sorry, I think I was using a tone of voice I did not mean. I think I'm overreacting. It's cool to say, I made a mistake. Not just the words, I'm sorry, because that gets old. It gets old, it gets stale, and it doesn't have the same feeling. So practice different ways. I know I've hurt you. What can I do that would help us get happy again? I'm owning it. I have made a mistake. I have said something that I regret. How can I help to get us happy again? That's just saying a lot. You know, that's saying, I don't want to be angry. I don't want to have this kind of relationship or have this kind of communication. I want to be happy. And that's part of having a family. That's what we really want. Down, you know, the bottom line is we want to be happy. We want to enjoy each other's company.
What if they're in this kind of thing? My daughter gets worse. What if I said, I know, I've hurt you. What can I do that would make us happy again? And she says, you know, certain things she wants that's not within what's going to happen. Like it's bedtime.
And then you can say to her, you say it's bedtime, and you're feeling like this is just to prolong going to bed. I love you very much. We can talk more about this in the morning.
Okay.
And just nip it. Just, you know, nip it right where it is and come back to it in the morning when you're both feeling better. I love you. I hate fighting, and I'm sorry for my part of this one. I feel lousy about what just happened. Can we just make up? I'm going to give a few examples of ways to say I love you other than the just plain I love you. You can show someone how much you love them by using your consequences for actions consistently, by saying I'm proud of you whenever you are. Catch your child being good. Rather than we find ourselves catching our children when they're doing something negative, we need to rewind again. When we talk about rewinding those tapes, we need to be more mindful to find the same level of response when we catch our child being good as we have when we catch them doing something that's not so good. Keep your promises. Better yet, don't make them. Promises can be broken, and that causes broken feelings and mistrust. Ask, how do you feel about such and such a thing? Cheer proudly for your child. Let your yes mean yes and your no mean no. And yes, that is a way to show your child that you love them. Laugh when you are happy. Play with them. Play is important to a happy family and a happy home. And that means whether you are talking about having a 16-year-old or a 2-year-old, play is still important. Use a soft voice. Tell the truth. Accept no excuses, bargaining, or whining. Implement rules in your home so you know and they know what the rules are. This will give you an opportunity where you're able to have a consistent message that's being sent and will avoid some of the negativity, some of the yelling that may or may not be coming. Don't say don't. Don't is a word that is used a lot. But what we want to try to do is teach our children what to do rather than what not to do. So I want to take out the don't out of conversations. Don't put your feet on the couch can be flipped around to couches are for sitting, feet go on the floor. Don't play ball in the house. Balls are outdoor toys. Don't leave your shoes in the middle of the floor. Shoes belong in your room. Don't leave dirty dishes on the table. Dirty dishes go in the sink. What we're doing is we're taking the don't out and being very clear about what needs to happen versus don't. And I could feel it. You can feel that coming. Your voice gets a little louder. The finger starts to point. That's human reaction. That's I don't know why. I don't have a clinical term for it, but it comes. And it just like verbal vomit comes out with that negative stuff. So talk about the rules. If we have family rules in place. If the rule is feet are on the floor, you shouldn't have to say, don't jump on the couch, your feet aren't on the floor, you're gonna get hurt. For God's sakes, will you get down? We shouldn't have to do these things if we have a consistent message and we keep things as positive as possible. Part of listening, and part of communication is listening. And I'm going to read a poem that I found. It's done by Keith Pearson from Melbourne, Australia. And it's really quite powerful when we talk about communication. When you listen, you affirm me, but your listening must be real, sensitive and serious, not looking busily around, not with a worried or distracted frown, not preparing what you will say next, but giving me your full attention. You are telling me I am a person of value, important and worth listening to, one with whom you will share yourself. I have ideas to share, feelings which too often I keep to myself, deep questions which I struggle inside me for answers. I have hopes, only tentatively acknowledged, which are not easy to share, and pain and guilt and fear I try to stifle. These are sensitive, are real and a real part of me, but it takes courage to confide in another. I need to listen too. If we were to come close, how can I tell you I understand? I can show interest with my eyes or an occasional word, attuned to pick on not only the spoken words but also the glimmer of a smile, a look of pain, the hesitation, the struggle which may suggest something as yet too deep for words. So let us take time together, respecting the other's freedom, encouraging without hurrying, understanding that some things may never be brought to light, but others may emerge if given time. Each, through this listening, enriches the other with a priceless gift of intimacy. As we talk about self-esteem, I want to talk about the importance of self-esteem in the family unit, but also about thinking positively about ourselves. Because if we're not able to love ourselves, it's very difficult, if not impossible, to love others. We need to be positively thinking about ourselves in order to reflect that positive outlook to those that we love. There's a quote by M. Scott Peck: "Children who are truly loved unconsciously know themselves to be valued. This knowledge and feeling valuable is essential to self-esteem." There's some different ways that we can encourage self-esteem in ourselves and in our children, or within our family unit. Use parental authority wisely. Do not say more than is necessary. So what that means is, because we're bigger, because we're the parent, because we said so, doesn't work. It means that there are rules in our home. As a family, we follow those rules consistently. Encourage self-rebellion, meaning have rules that are consistent, but make them short, sweet, and simple. Allow each family member to be who they are within a safe realm of rebellion. Allow space for privacy and ignore moodiness. Ignore moodiness. Yes, I'm repeating that on purpose. It is very, very tough to do. Especially, I have found that with teenage girls, they become, between that age of 12 and 13 for many, their moodiness increases. And this happens in 99.9% of households with teenage girls.
Oh my God.
And it does not stop. But the more we ignore that moodiness, the better off we all are. Our family is, and we are as individuals. Support ideas, interests, and fantasies. Be an advocate. Allow opportunities for exploration. Allow exploration within their world, again within safe boundaries. Remember your sense of humor. Unconditionally love your child or children even when your expectations are crushed. It's so important we don't always like their behaviors, but we love our children. Teach when your help is requested. Sometimes we love our children so much that we want to save them from hurts. We want to save them from lessons in life. And we will stifle their exploration or their feelings, not on purpose, but we will do that by trying to teach and trying to avoid a situation. Remember to respect that level of request. If they want you to teach them something, they will ask. Set your own limits and follow through. Throughout our time together, you're going to hear the word consistency, 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 because it's key. If you say it, mean it, and follow the same rules over and over. Because patterns or behaviors are ways to make a difference in your family unit. But if the rules change up and down, day to day, depending on who's at the house, where you are, what the situation may be the same but in a different location, that's a mixed message. And that's going to be something that they learn, that if they push hard enough, they'll back off. All I have to do is push a little harder than usual. It's not doing anybody any good. Stay with your limits and follow through. Learn to listen without giving advice or trying to fix things. Again, looking at the styles of communication that we've talked about, listen to hear what's being said, not to automatically want to respond. Validate your child's thoughts and feelings. Recognize they're theirs. We don't have to agree with them, and sometimes we won't. We absolutely will not agree with their thoughts or their feelings, but remember they're theirs. Acknowledge them. Build on your children's strengths by catching them doing something right. Praise for something being done well versus catching them doing something negative. Express appreciation when children are being helpful and cooperative, especially with our family rules. If we're following the rules, thank them. Great job, buddy, high five. Those are kudos that really go a long way. Show confidence and trust in your children. This is tough, especially if your children are little. You don't want them to make mistakes. Or if they're teenagers, you don't want them to maybe make the same mistakes that we had. We want to try to avoid some of those things. Nurture success. View mistakes as opportunities for learning. And that means all of us. That's not specific to children. That's specific to each of us. We are human beings, and if we've made mistakes in our past, they are opportunities for learning. The only mistake that stays a mistake is when we do not acknowledge it and we don't learn from it. Spend time together. Make dates and develop common interests. I cannot tell you how many hours of my life I've played with Thomas the Tank Engine, Legos, and Pokemon. Does that mean that I enjoy Thomas Tank Engine, Pokemon, or Legos? Not so much. But you know what? I have spent many hours doing just that because it was something that was of interest to my child.
If it keeps your kid happy, yeah, you do it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's no different with daddies. Daddies can have a tea party and play, play dress up, and they can enjoy that. That is part of being a parent. We're supposed to enjoy these things. Listen actively and understand from your child's perspective. Your opinions may not match, and that's okay. Let them be who they are. Tell family members that you love them and hug them a lot. The only time that doesn't come into play is if some children have concerns with their space being invaded. Some children, it's uncomfortable for them to be touched. Some adults have a hard time with people being within their space. We can teach our children their personal space and our personal space. When we reach our arms in front of us and we can lock our fingers together, that space in front of us is ours. It's our personal space. Some children, I call them space invaders, and I don't mean that rudely. Some children just like to be sucked up to people. Other children don't want anybody in their space. So recognize who they are as individuals and who are you. If you're a parent that has a clingy child that you don't like to be clung to, you need to find a balance. How you do that is by teaching them their personal space. This is your space. This is mommy's space. And I will acknowledge and let you know when you can come into my space. So, for instance, if you're a person that doesn't like to be clung to, teach your child by not clinging to them. May I hug you? Ask them. Empower them. Encourage them to have that answer before you just go up and hug them.
Wow.
We want to recognize that we need to think positively about ourselves in order to model that for our children. There are different ways that we can remind ourselves and give different tools to our toolbox about how to think positively about ourselves. Acceptance. Identify and accept your strengths and weaknesses. Everyone has them, and no one is perfect. Encouragement. Take a can-do attitude. Set a reasonable timetable for personal goals and offer yourself encouragement along the way. Praise. Take pride in your own achievements, both great and small. Remember, your experiences are yours alone and enjoy them. Help. Set realistic goals. Meet them by learning new skills and developing your abilities. Time. Take time out regularly to be alone with your thoughts and feelings. Get involved in activities you can enjoy by yourself, like crafts or reading, or an individual sport. Learn to enjoy your own company. Relaxation. Learn how to relax. Take life more slowly. Appreciate your blessings. Lower your expectations of yourself and others. Trust. Pay attention to your thoughts and feelings. Act on what you think is right. Do what makes you feel happy and fulfilled. Respect. Don't try to be someone else. Be who you are and be proud of who you are. Explore and appreciate your own special talents. Love. Learn to love the unique person you are. Accept and learn from your mistakes. Don't overreact to errors. Accept your successes and your failures, because those that love you do. Take pride in your individuality. Each one of us are made different by design, and we are distinctly different individuals, but be proud of our own individuality. And sometimes that's hard for us to recognize that. Help yourself by developing your talents and your abilities. Encourage yourself when you need it. Praise yourself when you deserve it. Why is self-esteem important? How you feel about yourself affects how you act. How children feel about themselves affects the way they act. How you feel and think about yourself and how children feel and think about themselves changes each and every day. Some people are very important in a child's life. Who are the most important people in the lives of our children? They usually will include mom, dad, brothers, sisters, and grandparents, caregivers, teachers, 4-H or other youth leaders, and television stars are also important in the lives of our children. People who are important children have a great effect on the development of self-esteem in those children. There are different characteristics that we can look at in children, or adults for that matter, with high self-esteem. Most of the time, people with high self-esteem will make friends easily. They show enthusiasm for new activities. They're the kind of people that are always ready for the next adventure. They are cooperative and they follow rules. They can control their behavior. Children sometimes will, with high self-esteem, will play by themselves or with other children. They like things both ways. They like to be creative and have their own ideas. They like to be happy, full of energy, talk to others without much encouragement. The only time that these rules are different is when a child has a diagnosis in the spectrum of autism or Asperger's. Sometimes, and children may have other disabilities that will set them apart from those typical ways of a child showing that they have a high self-esteem. Characteristics of children with low self-esteem. Most of the time, children with low self-esteem will say things like, I can't do anything well. I know I can't do it. I know that I will fail.
Oh, man.
I don't like me. I wish I were someone else. Those are characteristics that if we're hearing those words and we're hearing those kinds of statements from our children, We really need to encourage some positive reinforcement, some praise, and look for how we can communicate to find out why are they feeling that way. How can we help to build high self-esteem? We've covered a few topics. We've talked about taking the don't out of conversations, letting children know that mistakes are a natural part of growing up. Try to ignore temper tantrums and other negative behavior as much as possible by showing appreciation when children cooperate, when they help you, say kind things to others, obey the rules, and do other positive things. Remember, we want to be that first teacher. We also want to be that role model. It takes time to learn new skills, and children don't always remember those skills all at one time. So if we need to reinforce a skill or a behavior or a modification that we're looking for, try to talk about what you liked about that behavior. And again, going back to that, take the don't out. Try your best to praise for the things that they do well, and you need to acknowledge the things that are not going as well or negative behaviors, but don't make them with as much emphasis as you do on the positive. When a child misbehaves, separate the misbehavior from the child. For example, say, I do not like it when you throw toys, but I still like you. I know you'll do better tomorrow. Let the child know you believe in him or her. We all have moments. We all make mistakes. We all have days that are better than others. And remember that and acknowledge that in your children as well. Some of the actions or some of the negative behaviors that we may unfortunately take part in that will lower child's self-esteem include trying to avoid the following actions because they may lower. Expecting too much or too little from our children. Yelling at, criticizing, especially in front of other people. Calling children clumsy, thoughtless, stupid, lazy, or any other negative names. Telling children who have made mistakes that they are failures. Overprotecting or neglecting children. Yes, overprotecting our children is not a strength. They need to be able to be who they are, because you're not going to be able to hold them tight and keep them away from that big bad world forever. They need to know what's ahead of them. And making those small mistakes along the way, we can encourage them when the stakes are higher. I found something to think about is what the title is. This is a great opportunity to share with you in regard to self-esteem and encouragement, as well as an opportunity to open a door for conversation with your family. I saw you hug your purse closer to you in the grocery store line, but you didn't see me put an extra $10 in the collection plate last Sunday. I saw you pull your child closer when we passed each other on the sidewalk, but you didn't see me playing Santa at the local mall. I saw you change your mind about going into the restaurant, but you didn't see me attending a meeting to raise more money for the hurricane relief. I saw you roll up your window and shake your head when I drove by, but you didn't see me driving behind you when you flicked your cigarette butt out the car window. I saw you frown at me when I smiled at your children, but you didn't see me when I took time off from work to run toys to the homeless. I saw you stare at my long hair, but you didn't see me and my friends cut 10 inches off for locks of love. I saw you roll your eyes at our leather coats and gloves, but you didn't see me and my brothers donate our old coats and gloves to those that had none. I saw you look in fright at my tattoos, but you didn't see me cry as my children were born and have their name written over in my tattoo heart. I saw you change lanes while rushing off to go somewhere, but you didn't see me going home to be with my family. I saw you complain about how loud and noisy our bikes can be, but you didn't see me when you were changing the CD and drifted into my lane. I saw you yelling at your kids in the car, but you didn't see me pat my child's hands, knowing he was safe behind me. I saw you reading the newspaper map as you drove down the road, but you didn't see me squeeze my wife's leg when she told me to take the next turn. I saw you race down the road in the rain, but you didn't see me get soaked to the skin so my son could have the car to go on his date. I saw you run the yellow light just to save a few minutes of time, but you didn't see me trying to turn right. I saw you cut me off because you needed to be in that lane that I was in, but you didn't see me leave the road. I saw you waiting impatiently for my friends to pass, but you didn't see me. I wasn't there. I saw you go home with your family, but you didn't see me because I died that day you cut me off. I was just a biker, a person with friends and a family, but you didn't see me. I bring this to class for two reasons. I've been a passenger on a motorcycle since I was 4. My husband drives a bike, and I'm a passenger as often as my now 12-year-old son will allow me to be on the motorcycle. The other piece that I bring into this is, what are we teaching our children? When we don't watch with open eyes in our environment. We can't judge folks by looking at them at face value. The old cliche is, don't judge a book by its cover. But it's so very important because we live in a world, a very diverse world. There are folks from many different nations, different ethnic backgrounds, religious backgrounds. We're all different colors and shapes and sizes. And we need to be able to teach our children that whether we look different or we have different beliefs, we are all one. And we need to live united in order to have a happy environment in a community in which we're all safe to live. I hope that you've enjoyed the Practical Parenting series and added some new tools to your parenting toolbox along the way. If you have further questions or want more information about the Practical Parenting series or any of the programs that the Parent Resource Center offers, please visit www.parentresourcecenter.info. I hope you choose to have a great day and enjoy the journey.